Hi, everyone. Welcome to Food Talk with Dani Nierenberg. Today, I am really excited to chat with John Kung, who is a third culture cookbook author, and this is needless to say, he's like very, very influential on social media. He's really dedicated to blending culinary innovation with advocacy on food policy and sustainability. Jonathan, what a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to ask you a question. Do you not like the term chef?
For me, chef has always been just a administrative role. I know because of television and, a lot of romanticization around the name. And I understand that like it can be a very meaningful title to some
Hmm.
people,
Hmm.
but for me, it was very much just the difference between a chef and a cook was like the chef had to be in the office doing all the paperwork and the ordering, the
Mm,
hiring, the firing. Like all of the
sure.
cooks do make the food. The chef's kind of like is it admin. So I don't do that anymore. And so I don't feel one way or another attached to the role. Now, some other people, once a chef, always a chef, and I'm
Right.
totally fine with them calling me that, especially if it's
Right.
other people in the food and beverage industry. But otherwise, I don't introduce myself as such.
Okay, got it. So you identify, as I said, as a third culture cook. Can you explain to our listeners and viewers what that means to you?
Sure. Being a person of third culture is kind of like, not kind of like, it actually just is a very specific lived experience where you grew up on the precipice of two very distinct cultures. The one that like inhabited the home where you lived, and a
Hmm.
completely separate one that kind of like operates outside, directly outside of the world where your home was. So in my case, I grew up in a very Chinese household,
Hmm.
and in that case, and that same case, that household was in North America, whether it be Canada or the United States. So I crossed in my daily life from young childhood to adulthood. I crossed a cultural threshold every
Hmm.
day and
Hmm.
had to dance, communicate, laugh, eat, drink. Um, the differences between the two on a daily
Yeah,
basis, an experience that my parents didn't really have as like
sure.
people who came as adults, and an experience that a lot of my peers didn't have as like natives to a country. So,
Sure.
um, yeah, it's not a good or a bad thing. I use it as like a creative outlet, and I express that through my food. We have some like wonderful nuances and have this ability to combine our experiences in both
Mhm.
worlds into something that I think is completely unique. And it's not, you know, it's not unique to just my Chinese experience. There
Sure.
are culture in the United States, there are third culture Mexicans, there are third culture Nigerians, there are third culture French. Like there are many,
Uh-huh.
many people that share this experience. And a lot of us, though our cultures are completely different, the ones that we
Yeah.
came from, it is found that our experiences and the way we see the world, the way we understand humor, the way we communicate, the way we have an increased levels of empathy because we
Right.
have to learn how to communicate with different people day on a daily basis and just switch that immediately.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we have those things in common, so we get it, even though
Yeah.
we might not speak the same language. And I think that's
Right, right. Like literally. I
yeah.
want to come back to the empathy point in a moment, but crossing a cultural threshold every day, you've had to do that. It can be traumatizing for some people, right? And I'm wondering what advice you have, especially for young people like yourself who, have had a similar experience, but it's more difficult for them.
It is more difficult, but I've always found that nothing is, few things that are worth it are ever really easy.
Yeah.
Yes, growing up is hard, and doing growing up in this way can be isolating, but there is a whole world of people out there, and as your world gets bigger, as you grow up, you will find these people. I found these people through TikTok. I didn't even know that people didn't know what the term third culture was. This is something that I
Mm.
was privileged to just grow up with,
Sure.
since high school. And I just thought everybody knew what this term was. I thought everybody understood what this experience was. But there are so many people out there that were like, when I was talking about this stuff in my videos, was like, oh my gosh, this is who I am. And I didn't even know there was a word for it. So yes,
Hmm.
it can be a lonely in that life. Being insightful in different ways can be very lonely. I mean, it is Pride Month. Like that is another level in which people can have this like possibility for loneliness because we are different. But again, your world will get bigger and
Hmm.
you will meet other people who are like you and you will bounce ideas off each other and hopefully you will create some delicious and beautiful things as a result.
Absolutely. What I like about you is you've been able to use your life experiences to really become this great advocate and really help, um, raise issues for folks like you said that they don't know about. We talk about empathy and also sort of the epidemic of loneliness in this country, I feel like there's so much of a lack of empathy. We're seeing more of it grow. I think again in the culinary world, there was that time, when chefs were throwing their pans. Now there's more awareness of around mental health and all of the challenges that people face working those long hours. How do you sort of look at those two things, the epidemic of loneliness and the need for more empathy, especially right now?
I think when it comes to this epidemic of loneliness, a lot of it has to do with, a younger generation just growing up isolated through COVID, and that's what they knew.
Hmm.
The fact that we communicate with each other more through screens now than we do on just an in-person basis unless we still have to go to work and like our our human interactions that we have like for the most part are obligatory or forced. There's nowhere for
Hmm.
us to hang out anymore.
Right,
The third places are gone. Rents are so high. Like these places especially in cities don't really exist.
right.
I want to say like loneliness in this day and age seems to be inflicted on us through so many different like sources, whether it's like a lack of public spaces, free spaces, whether it is disagreements politically speaking,
Hmm.
whether it's just simply just an inability to be uncomfortable around people that don't exactly agree the same way that you do.
Right, right.
Like I think have we're not as used to being as uncomfortable as we once were,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
And it
yeah.
makes us a lot less tolerant to like, and I'm not saying like, somebody who's just completely morally opposed to you, but even people
Sure.
within our own political and moral camps, like one person can say the wrong thing or not know the right thing at the right time, and
Right.
that is so easily just basis for that person to get shunned. And it's not even
Yeah.
through an intent, it's just through the moment and what they did or did not know at the time. Um, yeah. And I think in that way, a lot of that loneliness can be self-inflicted.
Yeah, yeah. That really resonates with me, this idea of sort of digging into the uncomfortable and, understanding that there are going to be people you disagree with, but maybe they'll also change your mind, hopefully for good and not
Hmm.
for some of the bad things we see. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that definitely swings both ways.
sure.
What is it? Like that sword is definitely double-edged, as it were.
For real, for real. So you're not only someone who cares deeply about the culinary world and creating and really reaching people, but you care about sort of the whole world of sustainability in our food and agriculture systems. And I'm wondering if you can share, some of your thoughts on what you're seeing and hearing.
Uh, Up until I guess this current administration, there seemed to have been a positive trend towards a desire to live sustainably. I'm not really sure how things are going now, but it seems like the zeitgeist really just does follow um the way that the country just goes based on its leadership in such a
Right.
weird way. Or maybe we're just in a hierarchy of needs situation where it was like before we could think about things like that. Now a lot of people are just trying to survive. And
Sure.
you can't blame anyone
Right.
for like having to worry about those things. But there was such an interest leading up to the election of sustainable living, of
Hmm.
things that because, climate change is still very real. It is at this point a train that we cannot stop.
Right.
And we had, in a way, the luxury of worrying about something like that. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of us do, but not enough of us do, I would say. So I can still try to lead by example in my content and try to one thing I would love to do, and one thing I do love to do is hide sustainable practices within like economic response and under the veil of economic like responsibility, saving
Sure.
money, reusing things as much as possible, which is just simply tactics of things that I learned in the restaurant, working in restaurants, just
Right.
trying to turn a profit.
Right.
All of these things are line and step within each other and are very easily passed on through video as little tidbits of knowledge.
Yeah, that's so creative, and that I feel like that kind of thing really reaches young people who are,
Mhm.
they might not be as worried about the climate crisis as they were 6 months ago, but I think they do care about, like you said, how to save money, how to, reuse things. This is a generation that I feel like gets it, that they're not
Yeah.
so focused on consumerism. But at the same time, young folks lack a lot of representation when it comes to decision making or policy making. Folks of color, folks of different ethnicities, they lack the same sort of representation. And I wonder how that is shaping some of what we're seeing around food and agriculture policy.
Uh, I think young people in general do care, especially from the basis of health and well-being, where our food comes from, what is used on our food. And that is more likely to incite some kind of
Mm-hmm.
willingness to vote in policymaking. Unfortunately, within that space itself, especially within like the short form media space,
Hmm.
there's so much misinformation that drives passion. Um,
Yeah,
out there. And yes, it can get them engaged, but unfortunately, a lot of their actions are not informed by science. I mean,
yeah,
climate, it seems like in general, we are very well educated in what is good and what is bad for the planet. But when it comes to our own health and wellness, a lot of people are just willing to believe anything.
right, right.
And as we can see now, it's not just young people who
Hmm.
believe these things. In fact, it's a lot of the people who are in positions of power as well. So, yeah, it does inform their desire to take action, but unfortunately, it's not always the right thing.
Yeah, no, I see that a lot, especially in the food as medicine space and the nutrition space. I have a meeting later today to talk about how we fight that misinformation. But I think one of the things that you do really well is use your culinary creativity to fight that misinformation. And is there a particular experience that you want to share, that you've found is useful or practical for people? You talked about, sort of the economical side of this, inserting that into your content. But are there other ways that have been useful for you?
Um, Shame to say, getting people angry
Mm,
is very effective, which is something that I use very sparingly. Short form
sure.
media has gotten to the point where people have realized that attention and retention of attention is much more successful when you are bringing discourse and
Hmm.
rage as opposed to joy.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people now get into like these habits of what they call like doom scrolling and just like
Right.
just falling down this spirals of like bad news and hot takes and stuff. So I don't like to get people angry in my content too much. In fact, I like to like save I like to like in this time at least exude as much peace as I can in
Sure.
the videos I put out there. But, there are still things that are worth getting angry over. And when it comes to
Certainly
climate,
are.
when it comes to misinformation, I'm very passionate about these topics. I can get pretty like heated up. Um, and so the passion, my passion shows through it when it comes to these topics, and I think people do respond to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I get fired up about these things too, especially when it comes to RFK. And I've been very vocal about that. And, Food Tank prides itself in being sort of a center organization. I wonder what I imagine I know what your thoughts from watching some of your content are on RFK, but the misinformation that's coming out of the Office of Health and Human Services is very extreme right now, and a lot of people believe it. And how do we counteract that, whether we're cooks or advocates or regular consumers?
I have not yet figured out whether people believe him because they actually believe him or whether they believe him because he is on their side of the political spectrum.
Mm, mm,
One thing that I have not figured out, and it's something that I've been working on because, at the end of the day, I work in the food industry, I'm of the food and beverage industry. I care what happens to farmers. And there are not very many farmers in the state of Michigan who see eye to eye with me politically, but I
right.
still, at my core, just want them to do well. I want them to survive. I want them to thrive. But so that being said, like, people just act against their own interests all the time for that sake. They see politics almost like a sports team
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
like no matter what they do to us, no matter how much they disappoint us, no matter how much they break our hearts, we will always vote this way.
Mm,
And I don't understand, like, if RFK were somebody that was spewing these things from the other side of the aisle,
mhm,
would
mhm.
they still think the same things? Like,
Right.
would they still so readily believe him? I
Yeah.
mean, like, I think giving him the time to even speak all on its own, let alone like, appoint people beneath him and appoint people
Right.
into offices or like alongside him, like would people be as willing to follow if it wasn't if he wasn't a Republican to begin with? Like
Right.
I
Right.
hadn't figured that out. And
Yeah.
so I can, debunk and reshare videos from other scientists, other actual doctors and people who are in researchers in the fields of vaccine study and
Hmm.
whatnot. But
Hmm.
like I don't know where I don't know where that disbelief is coming from or how they
Yeah.
could have it or like where the seed was planted that eventually grew into this fanatical belief.
Right. Right. One thing that strikes me and that I've talked about frequently is that there are so many of people I love, people I admire in the food, nutrition, health, agriculture space who are so excited about RFK Jr. and his role now at Health and Human Services. And I've been so surprised by that because I don't know how to counteract that because this is a man who I feel doesn't have the qualifications, as you just pointed out, to be running this office. I wonder if the same thing's happening to you because you're a food person.
I think there is, I think it starts off with people who are willing to agree to listen to the things that he says, and he starts off with quite mild things that are relatable,
Hmm. Hmm.
understandable, generally accepted. There is this purveying thought within, like, I guess, our population that the food that we consume by and large is unhealthy. And the food, like, that pesticides are not good for us, that um, the scary word du jour, chemicals and unnatural chemicals, which, literally the world is chemicals. But like that seems to be something that is where things begin, and then things spiral out of control from there. Um,
Yeah.
and that isn't to say that we have a perfect food system. We have a very
Mhm.
consumer-driven, pleasure-driven uh, diet because we are a country that just has like we're a country of plenty in that
Yeah.
way. We have
Yeah.
a lot of like, hedonistic snacks that are very easy and very um and very cheap. And then we also have a lot of processed foods, which also is a word that people are terrified, but really has no actual meaning in the world of actual. I can cut a carrot and that's processed. But
Right.
people are
Right.
talking like, okay, what about ultra processed? And everybody thinks ultra processed only means potato chips and French fries. And I'm only thinking of potato products right now when I think of ultra processed, but that also means your protein powders, and that also means
Sure.
vitamins. Like
Sure.
these, and I think it's when we like focus on these buzzwords, which they oftentimes really do, and and then they correlate those buzzwords with things that are not, that they know are not good for them, but completely
Yeah.
ignoring the fact that like we know what to do. Like we know we're supposed to eat fruits and
Right.
vegetables. And like, yes, there are pesticides on these things, but you can wash them off. Um, I think the right thing to do is oftentimes in front of us, but so easily just like overshadowed by like, oh, but this is so much more fun and easy. And obviously, this is not talking about like we have to take on the issues of access because not a lot
Yeah.
of people have access to like fruit, or not everybody has access to like fresh fruit and vegetables and nutritious meals. But that's a completely different, like that's a completely different sector on its own. Those are people that have no choice as opposed to the
Right.
folks that
Right.
do.
Yeah, I wonder in your content if this lack of access, the lack of affordability for healthy foods comes up and what your listeners think about it.
It depends. The people that know that that understand that I'm pretty no nonsense in the like in the advice that I give and the content that I make, like they like it's very, very simple health and nutrition focused stuff because I don't really know enough to get all that complicated about
Sure,
it.
sure.
I'm not a nutritionist. I'm very, very happy to say that. But I pay attention to more than most when it comes to tracking macronutrients, vitamins, and making sure that I
Mhm.
get everything that I need. I mean, I've made it my very secret, not until now, life's goal to get more Americans to eat fiber because 95% of us do not get enough fiber in our foods.
Right, right.
And so, but we're all obsessed with protein as if like pooping
Yeah.
isn't difficult enough. But yeah, and that's been what my focus has been on, just like the basic things. And I always look out to make sure that I have like the comment in comments to make sure that I have the okay from the doctors that I follow, from the
Sure.
nutritionists that I follow. That's very essential feedback that I actively look for. And if
Right.
they sign off on it, then I feel good about the advice that I give. But I won't give any time to somebody who says, "But you used a seed oil."
Jonathan, I love you more than I thought I would. This is great. This is great. I knew I was going to love you, but this is even better than I could have imagined.
I'm so
You know,
glad.
this responsibility that you feel as somebody putting out information, not all of your colleagues on TikTok feel the same way, right? We talked about misinformation before.
They
Is
don't.
because you're so popular, do you think, other TikTokers and other social media influencers can, look at you and follow your lead? Is that something you feel like you're setting sort of the standard for?
Uh, at the risk of sounding a little jaded, it's like I am popular. I'm not as popular as people that don't care.
Mm,
It is short form media is at the end of the day like the potato chips of
mm,
media. It is something that people turn to for a quick fix of entertainment,
yeah.
and like it can be at times, depending on the platform, depending on the time of day, it can be a place where people still go to like learn something or discover
Yeah.
something. But it has the medium has very, very rapidly devolved, or like, yes, I will say that. Um into like on the most harmless end of the spectrum, cute cat and pit bull videos, which I love. And on the other hand, it is like, complete like misinformation, whether it be from any
Right.
topic that you already have, maybe something that you might be inclined to agree with.
Yeah.
It's very good at finding your lowest common denominator for attention. That's what it's designed for. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, um, learning and education is like much higher than there. So I think when I think when the community was much smaller and there were less
Yeah.
options, I had the, like to speak frankly, I had the advantage of being one of the first. And I grew very quickly in that way because of that.
Yeah.
And I just have not allowed my beliefs to falter. And I didn't want to change my content style as a result. And I'm really grateful for the people that have stuck with me and the people that
Sure.
join, because now it's there's so many other options there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like the more time goes by, I am becoming more different by staying the same that I was
Yeah.
started.
That's smart. It's been smart for you. Sort of going back to policy, I wonder what advice you have for young folks. At Food Tank we call voters citizen eaters, people
Mhm.
who vote with their forks, obviously, but also vote, for the kinds of food and agriculture systems they want to see. What advice do you have for young people who want to get involved but don't always understand the connections between food, nutrition, climate, etc.?
I think the best thing that you can do is like look for a physical community in your area. Farmers markets, I would say, though it might be a little bit of a cliche to find somebody with a like a notepad and a writing board at a farmer's market, but I think that is still like a good
It
spot
is.
when it comes to
Yeah.
community. Like not only do you have the opportunity to like, get politically involved, but you can like meet your farmers and do
Mhm.
community supported agriculture, see what they're doing, find out the message boards that they're a part of. And those grassroots communities are still very, very active and very passionate. And it is very easy to like fall into them. Now, you probably have to live in a bigger city to do that,
Sure.
or maybe even a more liberal city that is smaller like Ann Arbor, but they are out there.
Mhm.
As opposed and like for people in smaller communities, then I think, you know, the internet is still a very good resource.
Mhm.
Places that you content creators that are activists are more on the activist sides. There are a lot of content creators that are farmers now, and they
Yeah.
are spread all over. Farmer Nick, who just recently moved to Michigan, is one example. And not a farmer, but Black forager, Alexis Nicole
Mhm.
is also a
Oh,
very good person.
yep.
Who
Yep.
love her.
I know. I know.
I've been
That's
trying to steal her from Ohio for years. Like you'd be so much happier in Detroit. Come to Detroit. But she's at least she's a stalwart Midwesterner. We can find solace in that. But there are many people who are entertaining to watch and extremely educational and will like happily hand out a resource. Um, but still, I think like the trend will be moving towards in person. I think we're kind of over the virtual at this point, and we need human connection.
Yeah, it goes back to the loneliness epidemic. I think so
Yeah.
many of us crave that community. I mean, one of the reasons I go to my farmers market is to talk to my farmers,
Yeah.
because I'm
Just
friends with
see
them
other
now,
people, have a conversation, ask them
Right.
how they're doing. Like I don't think people really have these conversations anymore. We need to, it's gotten so bad that I think that we need to bring back small talk.
Yeah.
I always like I grew up my entire life thinking that this stuff was so frivolous. It was like, no, I would love the opportunity to talk about this weather to somebody.
Right, right. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Um, I have two more questions for you. One is you have a new cookbook coming out. Do you want to talk about it a little?
Oh no, it's already out.
Oh, it's out.
So yeah.
Sorry.
The cookbook is called Kung Food, by John Kung, and it's just third culture recipes from
Nice.
like things that are informed by um my Chinese culinary background, specifically Cantonese, which are with a little bit of like Szechuan influences here and there because I just love that cuisine so much. And then like things that were informed by my childhood in Canada and the United States. So I
Yeah.
like a dandan lasagna that was both like Szechuan cooking, but also informed by the Stouffer's lasagna that I used to love as a kid.
Right,
Beef and
right.
broccoli pot pie, uh, Hong Kong chicken and waffles, that kind of thing. Lots of fun, creative dishes um, that are just based on both worlds.
I love it. I wonder what your friends and family think about this work that you do.
Oh, I don't. I, I don't I don't know if they get it. But like any traditional Chinese family, I'm sure they're fine just knowing that I'm fine.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Call to action for the audience that has been listening to you.
Oh, well, obviously get involved. Please don't lose hope. And don't let's not fall into like a pit of nihilism with everything that's happening. Stay active, stay positive, and I guess you could follow me on my socials
You want
at
to give those
and
out real
everything.
quick? That was my
Yeah,
next and
at
final question.
JONKUNG at everything. But most importantly, you know, don't lose hope.
That's a great point to end on. Jonathan, what a pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.